Okay, everybody, time to start the afternoon here, and I guarantee even though we just all had a great lunch, you're not going to fall asleep with this guy at the podium. Dr. Eric Frost is the director of the co-director of the Homeland Security Program at San Diego State, a program that I participated in. I have to be nice to Dr. Frost because I haven't finished my thesis yet. I think I only have a year to go. But, you know, why hurry when you can wait till the last minute, right, Eric? Eric's going to be talking, as you know, in the program about, around the hurricane event or the earthquake event in Haiti in 2010. And the Viz Lab, the visualization lab at SDSU, is very much involved in international disaster relief efforts. And I think you're going to learn a lot from what Eric has to say this afternoon. So, Eric, without further ado.
Thank you, Bruce, very much. Chris asked me if I would just really quickly show you some of this morning, the array of a whole number of you were actually involved in this. So this is a audience participation from what was done earlier today. So just as an example of, and this is just, some of you are way, way deeply into Twitter. Some of you are not, but you can go, so why would I get into Twitter? Because of the sort of the nature of this group of people here, one thing that might encourage you to be involved in Twitter is the people that you are trying to protect our nation, our community from, are way into Twitter. So you could say the competition, in a sense, is off the chart into this. And sort of like, another way, if you're one of the kinds of people that the way that you solve your oil problem on your car so that you never have an oil problem is that you take a little piece of duct tape and you put over the light, you don't need to learn any of this. So something is going on with this. And for people that have actually never seen Twitter, you can sort of go, it's really simple. Even I learned how to do it. So here is something that this morning, this is how it started out. As Chris very graciously started this little hashtag, SDCSSM. He started this hashtag out. So when he came up to talk this morning, there were 3 tweets here. And you can see over on the right side that he did it. He started out, he made the first one on the 19th of May, then he made the next 2 4 hours ago right now. So that this is what was taking place. And so he started out, and nothing existed when we started out except those tweets. As you can go through, then it became a conversation. Catherine, can you raise your hand? Catherine is the one that actually jumped on this before anybody else. So go hire her if she's not. So as she's doing it, then Gary Cook, who was sitting right there, he was actually also broadcasting via Google Plus. Everything that was done in terms of the presentation was being broadcast and it was being shown at Northcom, while they were also looking at President Obama giving the speech at the Air Force Academy and the jets flying overhead. So that was a real-time thing that they were looking at right side by side. And then that's why the joke that David was, because I started coming in, there's and then Pod Poet. It's anonymous. Molly's right there. Okay, sort of jumping in. So this is a group of people none of us ever met, but now we're in a digital. So as you actually start to go down, and then seeing Catherine is now doing things more, and you can start to see that functionally what different people were saying was just being summarized. Of here are the links, the different things that were going out, and not this isn't really part, but here is the. And then one thing, a person fire tracker jumped in. Fire Tracker, for any of you that follow emergency response on Twitter, Fire Tracker is one of the people that is on it all the time with either Fire Tracker or Fire Tracker 2. So he was listening to this because he follows several of us. As soon as he looks at it, he's one of the people that when there is a major emergency in the U.S., he's one of the very first people that almost all things jump out at you. So you can go to Fire Tracker, you can look at what he's doing. The network that he already has, you're seeing there's a connection because there's a network that he and Gary and I are connected. I've never met him, but there's a connection. So when we tweet it, he's then looking at it. So he's a 30-year retired firefighter looking at Twitter all the time. When there is a disaster, hands down, he beats anybody in government, I think. Everywhere, in a way. And so you can go, so he's also one of the people that, like David was talking about, you better answer when he says something in a way because he's not, anyway. So anyway, so you can go down and there's 5 new tweets. So you can look at the number of, so there's like 50 some of these things that were all just tweeted out. Now there's a digital record. There's also a digital record of this whole set of networks that are out there. So that's just what I was going to show. And then since my machine is open, I thought I would show you one other thing that probably most of you already do if you use Firefox or Chrome. If you don't do it, go home and do it. But how many of you use collusion? Okay, one of our adjunct faculty members here. Thank you, Jeff. So if you don't use collusion, you really need to go do collusion. Go look at the TED Talk on collusion. So I'm going to just show you, I'm just going to push a button. This button down here at the lower part that just shows you that I'm using collusion. I'm going to show you, I set my machine up to show, this is the people that are tracking me. Not tracking me because I want to be tracked, but tracking me because they're looking at, where I'm going, what I'm doing, and then they're sending the tracks out to other people. So this is my activity for 1 week. These are all people tracking me on the web, none of whom I asked to track me. DHS is on the back of this. It's a little so you can look at that and go, okay, and as it is sense that electronically anything that you go to the web and you're doing, there is a piece that's being tracked. You're doing things that's going on, and how many of those guys do you think are good guys? How many are bad guys? How many are no guys? How many are so that's all. So the first slide, please. So that would, Chris asked me if I would just show you the things from this morning. This was going to be a joint presentation with Brad Barker. Brad flew in from Australia yesterday to make it to this meeting, and I think being up for 3 days in a row, he's sort of doing this. So he called a little while ago and said he won't be here. So I'm going to pretend I'm Brad Barker as well. So the things that are there are HALO, San Diego State, RSQ is the Rescue Foundation. He and I are on the board of that, and this one, Coalition of Hope. But what this is about, in a general way, is we're asked to say some things about Haiti, and sort of, in a sense, with social media context, to think of Haiti as something that was a couple of years ago. How much has changed since then? And where are things going, sort of the speed and the trajectory of what's actually going on? So if you actually... The nature of one of the things that Brad wanted to talk about is an extraordinary thing that's happening here in the fall, in October, where General Hayden is the keynote, but a whole series of other people, including the FBI Infragard, will actually be at a meeting that's taking over Paradise Island and Mission Bay for an entire week. That will actually have some of the most extraordinary gatherings of all sorts of different kinds of things in a civ mill, whole array of NGOs, and a whole group of different people. This is from some of the things that Brad does. The Harbinger is a free online newsletter. It's about 60 pages long every month. It's free, just go sign up, and it's extraordinary information about most of these same kinds of things. For some of you, a lot of you have been to the Viz Center. So this is one version of what the Viz Center looks like. We're actually taking it apart right now to redo it for about the 25th time, I think. But largely all this is a monitor. And the major thing that most of all this is it's cloud computing somewhere, gathering data together, sharing it, and then making it available to people to try to make decisions. So here is one way to do it, and the major point of this is it's all totally commodity stuff. So the point of most of what we do is the high-end computing. Those servers are over at UCSD. I guess I have to push harder. The point of what we have talked about a number of times, this is 2007. And you can think of our world as we do a metric of what takes place between fires. Our world now is totally different than it was in 2007. Because in 2007, as you actually look at that fire from near the airport, looking over Otay Mountain, those flames over 200 feet high, and now looking at it, at that time, the metric was one map every 12 hours for the County Emergency Operations Center. And you now look at it. Could you and your 2 million closest friends, if you were standing there looking at that fire, would you take out your phone and go, dude, boom. And all these other people doing the same thing, taking out your phone, taking a picture of it. When there's an accident now, what happens? All these people jump out of the car, go take the video. Or what took place at NATO. People are doing that with a phone all the time. What if you could take that phone, make it so that you can then send it in via the network, and then aggregate all those pieces and make an animated fire map every 5 minutes? Okay, that's just computing. It's just the use of the cloud. It's the sense of what Haiti got started now is dramatically more powerful to do. As an example, Alan Burson in the middle, and with JJ, who is the person from Northcom, in charge of training, J7, Cliff Hugh from Red Cross down there, CBP, up here in Tribal Group down here. But the array of people that have come together to actually accomplish something is absolutely staggering. And Alan Burson now is the Assistant Secretary of DHS in charge of international affairs, the chief diplomat, is now saying, how do we do this in another way? And that's sort of get to at the end. The other way is, how do you use this to make money? And you go, make money? I'm in government. Right. Okay, so this is a public-private partnership. It's trying to say, how does government turn things around to involve the private sector, sort of functionally the Infragard? How do you go get enhanced security out of building up a capability to increase trade? That's being called international trade optimization. There's actually a small conference about that in about a month here. But sort of looking at here now, sort of as a historical point. This was Haiti. This was 3 days after the event took place. So the 72 hours. Okay, think of now what government, that's the context of 72 hours, take care of yourself. Citizen, save thyself. Okay, this took place. All this was functionally blank when the earthquake started. The roads, the names of the roads all very nicely, the trails, and then the array of the little tents that are the refugee camps, all those were put on within 3 days by the open source community. So by thousands of people around the world, and you go, yeah, but it's open source. I can't trust it. I'm government. I am required to do things the right way. It's got to be vetted. And go, a really simple way to vet this, make a transparency, put the imagery underneath it. So it was the Navy P3 imagery, the Amazon data, the Google data. You could just do it and you go, my God, it's right. It's also current. It's near real time. Every dot in there was put in with a device that has an IP address that went back to a person, the array of networks. Who did that? All of that was served from San Diego. So 120 terabytes of data went into that one piece from the cloud, people around the world serving it. And that sense of what's done, including like the little tents. You can just look at it and going, oh, there's a tent. Well, who put that tent in? How did they know where that tent was? How did they know who's there? If they didn't have that tent there, those people never would have gotten any food. Okay, that was put in from about 3 o'clock in the morning one day until about 6 o'clock in the morning, because people there said, we're going to deliver the food, but we don't know where any of the refugee camps are. So people sat down and said, okay, where is it? And that was one of the things that Jeff was very helpful in saying, how do you recognize a refugee camp? Did they put in an address? How do you know where they are? If you don't put that there, those people are going to get no resources. And so how that all goes in, and then it went out to, that became as an example, sort of when it was being done, this was the example of 3 screens. This was called the World Bank way of doing it. So the World Bank had 3 screens that stood up. All of this was going out. It was actually then duplicated, flown into Haiti, and were served out locally as well. So in a sense, the way that Haiti was done profoundly changed the use of open source and this whole array of things that we now fit into what we often call social media. Because what would take place in Haiti now is absolutely dramatically different. And largely it's because of things like what smartphones do and this massive computing in the back end. And government, Alan Burson as one, is saying, if you actually look at that in the context, that if people can help make money in terms of trade, you get an enhanced security out the side of it. So it's this public-private partnership that's very much the Infragard. The Red Cross, Dr. Hinrichs, something that is extraordinary. If you have not been to the Red Cross facility, you have to go there. You have to look at what they have built as their ability to collaborate, to do things, to draw on the map, to stream it out. They're using the Google Cloud. They can put things in, not just from San Diego Imperial, but they've also now got Riverside, San San Bernardino, Orange, Los Angeles. They've broken down the barriers because they put the data together. All of their data also go to Northcom. So all of a sudden, they have solved problems in interoperability that nobody has solved for a really simple reason, that they went and just built on how do you use the cloud in a very powerful way. It functionally works, flat out just works. A really simple way of looking at this. You can put all the data sets there, and you can say, okay, we're now responding. But you can also look at it and going, okay, everybody can't look at all of the data. One of the sets of data most people can't look at is simple data, who's donating money. But now think of somebody, Dr. Hinrich's thinking in his mind. He sees, here's where we're fixing somebody's house as they respond to all these fires. I mean, personal house. And you can go, oh, there's the fire house where the truck came from. Trucks have a habit of going from the fire engine house to the fire in a route that you can do. When the trucks go, they're usually making a noise, like a siren. And you can go, dude, like, I could see where it's going, which one of my people who are donating money is it going by. Hello, Mrs. Smith. Can you hear that fire engine? Your money is making it possible for us to respond. Would you like to donate more money? And all of a sudden you look at it, it can completely change the way of saying, your money just made that family that's next to you, they have help because of you. And now they're going a completely different way of looking at how you manage data. Sort of a general set of things with social media. And there's a huge number of different pieces that are there. And we commonly just sort of talk about things like Twitter and Facebook. But as a bit of a thing, if you've not done a number of these things, it's worth spending time in. For Twitter, as an example, we use Twitter because it's tactical. Most tweets are between 2 and 3 seconds. Facebook is much longer. But between 2 and 3 seconds, so we joke about Lady Gaga. Does anybody know the company behind her? How about the company behind number 2, which is Justin Bieber? Okay, I mean, you guys are really done. Who's number 3? Katy Perry. Who's number 8? President Obama. He used to be number 3. You start to look at the array of different pieces. Who are the companies behind them? And you go, these are high-performance computing companies doing things that make them millions of dollars. And they have a mascot, which is the person. But that mascot, the top 10 people, you're over 200 million people that somebody can tweet to. But of looking at it, there's a number of things that in an emergency responder way, one that's just really out, sort of like taking Twitter and alert, is extraordinary. There was just 63 alerts on Northcom this morning, partly because Twitcident is one from the Netherlands, really for first responders, extraordinarily powerful. And one, maybe more than anything else, the top one on the left, Hootsuite, Hoot, H-O-O-T, Suite, is one of the most powerful ways of bringing things together, accomplishing a whole bunch of these different kinds of things for a very small amount of money. But right now there's more than 300,000 tools in Twitter. 300,000 tools. And you can go, okay, there's a whole bunch of ways this is getting done in very powerful ways. Some people like Buzz Manager, one of the ones that does it for sports. You can go, do most sports figures make more money than you? Are they smarter? All right, see, that went really quickly. No, okay, they're not smarter, but they're better at something. They're also way better at making money. So you might look at this in terms of a company. Something like Buzz Manager works extraordinarily well in analyzing what's going on, what's taking place. She actually manages Shaq O'Neal, who's the largest sports figure. So just in sort of a simple way of looking at what our world is doing. This is from InQtel, the slide on the right, the function of the venture capital for the intelligence community. That's in 2010 saying there's 1,200 exabytes of data that are actually sort of out there being used. So we're past that now, and in 2015, saying that there's nearly 8,000 exabytes of data. Can you manage that in terms of the stuff that's going by? How much of that is about you or your company or what you're doing? And you start to go this massive array of data. How do you begin to get your hands around it? This becomes an extraordinary tool to actually do that. And you can see from the pictures of all these devices are now making it possible that people have an expectation of living functionally in the internet. As a simple way that we often think of Twitter, Facebook, how many of you use QQ? You're not one of the 710 million people that use it? 710 million people use it. They actually all speak Chinese. And you can go, are any of you ever concerned about intellectual property in China? Do you look at something that's an extraordinary asset and a gracious way of doing things? Another one that just came out a little while ago, so like pinning on a board. So you pin something of interest. So here's pictures, and that was one of the jokes from one of the people this morning. But it's a very showy, but it's a way that people are now saying, if you exclude Google, they got to 10 million users faster than anybody else. And so as it's getting ready to come out, it's still in beta. But if you start to use it, things that are like that little symbol, that you look at that little symbol and go, penguin with the thing wrapped around it. 710 million users. And if you start to look at all of these different things to go together, and what we as a group might be interested in, it's absolutely extraordinary what the pieces are, and how do you interact and interrelate to all of them. A general way that this could be summarized, ESRI has their major World Users Conference here in July, and they will be announcing this major change, because they have most of the GIS market for the world, a major change. Instead of client-based, the software that's on your machine, it's all web services. So it's actually a public cloud, a private cloud, and then everybody's in the sort of the middle, the hybrid. And you actually look at that and now go, that actually profoundly fits what the Red Cross is doing. But it profoundly fits this sense of using social media. And it's not just as a social media to share what we had for lunch. But the social media is 140 characters. It's a command line. It's a command line that can go do all sorts of things. And it isn't you necessarily tweeting. What if every fire truck or every police car was actually tweeting where I am every minute? So automatic vehicle location. But what it's tweeting is also, this is how much gas I have. This is how fast I'm going. This is the temperature. So it's a massive amount of data. Most of the stuff that's going to be sent in, functionally for us, the reason it's really important is it's somebody else's money, or the OPM, other people's money. So it's Twitter's money. We're using the infrastructure, and in that infrastructure, we're putting things together that you go, this is dramatically enabling near real-time insight into things that you can't at all see in other kinds of ways. Kind of as a small, can you name all the cities? Probably not. Can you name all the capitals? We can't do that either. Okay, this is the view of the Earth at night. The Earth at night is a way that you can go, oh, they're all connected. That's because they're connected by roads, and along the roads are more cities and more things. So this is a physical picture of North America of lights at night. And then on the side is all the fiber. Okay, this is now out as a map of looking at it, and in a very simple way, where there are people, as they are connected to each other with a road, that road usually is the right-of-way along which the fiber is. And so in a very powerful way, this is not only the map of where people are, it's also the map of the fiber communications for the world. And it's for the world. And as you actually look at that, another thing you might kind of look at it is sort of where this is going and why we as a group of public safety could jump on. There's a bunch of other people jumping on as a way of like there's NBA fans that are down there on NBA teams, NFL teams. And you can go, oh, so if I overlay that layer on top of that group, I can look at where are different people that are rooting for, who's using my brand? Where are my fans? How do I connect them up? How do I functionally make a community around sports in a huge, big way? In another way, instead of just by saying, I'm reading about it, it's how do I actually now connect up? As a simple example, when we have the Raiders here in San Diego, I know, it's really bad news. Which stadium has nobody in it? I know it's late in the afternoon. The Raiders are here. So the Raider Stadium has nobody. Do you think you could get a bunch of Raider fans in the Raider Stadium knowing that they're playing San Diego? You can go, well, what if we just make the stadiums so we connect the stadium with high fiber bandwidth, and then we connect the fans. And one of the things about the Raider fans is they're insane. So you can go, what if you are a fan? You are in the stadium, and now you have your device. And now you are not just watching, you are participating. So you're using your device, and now you're going, instead of just yelling and screaming, you're doing things with your phone. You're not just the wave, you are accomplishing things with that phone. You are playing things, maybe like World of Warcraft, kind of And the group that owns the Lakers is one of the ones that's way into this. And so you look at this and you go, okay, this is going on for people doing sports who have stadiums. AEG, who owns the Lakers, has 45 stadiums around the world. What if you could connect them? They also own a whole bunch of the fiber. So when you actually look at things like this, our world is changing. And is changing to do massive amount of computation, sending things back, and interaction. So it's social media in a rapid, extraordinary way for near real time. And can we use that in public safety as well? So looking at, could you draw all the world's fiber? Well, if it's drawn on here, you can start to see it's a staggering amount of where the fiber goes, what we would do with it, and then how do you take advantage of that, of this massive character of sharing of data back and forth, and of the ability of people from the other side of the world to help us during a disaster. Just a view of the world, and you go, it's just the world. Well, this is the first time the world, imaged by NASA, all the images in one day. So this is the new data set, NASA NPP. It's an embedded acronym. Participatory project is the last PPs. But as this information, there's 5 different instruments on this, it will be coming out. It will then provide a vehicle by which you could do animations of the world with a whole bunch of different things to also look at fire fuel load, a whole huge of other ways. It's hundreds of millions of dollars to billions of dollars of infrastructure. And can you compute it quickly and send it out to people and crowdsource it back and mimic it? So this is one of the kinds of things that a number of people are working on doing. And that as you then look at how would you merge that with something like, this is the world according to Facebook. And as you go down and look at, say, Southern California where we are, here's LA, Orange County, Camp Pendleton right there protecting us from them. So here's San Diego, Phoenix. That as you look at then how they're connected, where the roads are, where people are is lights at night. Connected by fiber is also almost identical to what things like Facebook are because it's really just showing where somebody is in their ISP. So if you actually look at the world getting together around ideas of sharing, and I think right now there's something like 500 billion Facebook messages. 500 billion. And where those things are going, even with their suit that was filed this morning. That as you look at how you put data sets together. This is one thing that we did at Exercise 24, where we embedded a whole series of the Google tools, a whole series of different feeds from different Twitter sites to connect to Mexico to how do you actually accomplish something to get ready for a major disaster. How you aggregate a whole bunch of different groups of people, and you can go, well, you just stand up and do it. Okay, if you do that, it is not going to be successful. So then the 2012 fires, have you said that yet? In the 2012 fires, if you start out doing Twitter and you've never used Twitter, how many people do you have in your network? 0. The power of this is the network that you have put together beforehand. The power is how you are connected to all these different people. And one of the things that with these, we're continuing to do this again in this, and the array of, right now, Northcom can talk to the leaders of Mexico in an extraordinary way and actually get it done. So they are incredibly good at talking. How long until the Mexican presidential election? And how far are we from Mexico? Okay, their election is on July 1st, so it's 37 days away, at which that country may change profoundly in a variety of different kinds of ways. As that's happening, the array of how do we actually collaborate? What do we do? What is President Obama's message to the new president? They will have a new president because you only get one term, so they will have a new president. Whether it's a new party or not, there will be a new president. What does President Obama say on July 2nd? Might he say something about, here, we could participate with you to do things like what Northcom did, put the fires out in northern Mexico this year because of the extraordinary drought. So we can go help them in a bunch of ways. How would you help? Why are we concerned about Mexico, or what could we do in a bunch of different ways? Another sort of a set, this is the new Customs and Border Protection Global Borders College in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, that was just inaugurated. Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, Borders College. And you go, wait a minute, I'm not really good at geography, but West Virginia. And you can go, but they have something we don't have, is they have a senator who's very good at this. So they have it, it's not anywhere along the border. But if they are the center of sending things out, one of the things that they're really interested in is a virtual border. How would you send them a virtual border that's actually virtual for the whole region, that might be near real time as well, with how many tweets come out on both sides? How many of you read tweets in Spanish? Okay, so one of the reasons that you might want to go read, follow a person named Shakira, some of you have probably seen her, you go, why would I follow Shakira? I'm embarrassed. Shakira is the champion of dual language, 3 language, and 4 language tweeting. How many of you do dual language tweeting? She does. She makes a lot of money at it. So all of a sudden you go, oh, this is why I go follow those people. So I know not the person, they are the mascot. Who is the company behind them? The high-performance computing company that's making millions of dollars a month by selling stuff is functionally direct marketing. How are they doing all these different kinds of pieces? It becomes something that when you take the name off and you start to look at what's actually going on, why is their high-performance computing beating the socks off things like DHS? And a lot of it you can go, because DHS has to obey the law. They have to do a whole bunch of things that they can't go do that. But you can go, how do we actually go learn from different kinds of things? So Shakira is something I've assigned most of my graduate students. Go watch Shakira. Go listen to her, because she's doing the dual language. Because you can imagine if you translate, it's not the same number of letters. How do you play this game? How do you make it in a whole staggering, maybe how many of you bought Boyfriend? Really quiet. Justin Bieber's new album that came out. And you go, oh, sure, of course I didn't buy Boyfriend. Okay, Boyfriend came out with in 10 hours, so in 10 hours, and how you build up to that, what took place that the next day he was #1 on iTunes. He made more money in one day than all of us will make in our life. And you can go, so I'm not going to buy I'm not a 12-year-old girl. I'm not going to go buy the thing, but I can watch how it was done. What he did to sell, what his company did to sell that video, functionally is better than anything done in government to accomplish something. And you go, also, I have to just watch it, and it's free, and so how do I go use functionally the best practices of a whole bunch of people doing things like that? And so of doing that, we're trying to put that into this, and then how we would deliver that out to the world. So it really ends up being connecting the dots as just relationships. You can't connect the dots if you have no relationships. And that's a huge part of the FBI Infragard. It's a way to build relationships. And as you build those relationships collectively, those dots can be connected. Twitter is just a way of connecting the dots. It's connecting the dots, the relationship gets built. It's profoundly powerful to build it before something actually takes place. And so by doing that, the open source often can be something that we can dramatically accomplish things that we can't do otherwise with all the budgets that we all have, which is 0. And it's sort of looking at the last slide, where this is all going. So there's a Nokia phone, because there's a Nokia theater in downtown LA. There is LA Live, there's Staples Theater, there will soon be a, probably if the environmental impact for the Farmers Insurance Group is going to be the owner of the name, so it will be called Farmers Field in downtown LA. So if they own, say, 45 venues around the world, they own a huge amount of fiber. And you can start to look at them and going, what if we connected to them all these pieces connected around the world with what the fiber is doing, and then from the phone, you are connecting from the phone into all the things that are taking place there, and it's a participatory thing that's going on as functionally infrastructure that is sharing a collaboration of near real-time, accomplishing things, near real-time visualizations to build near-time ways of, and that mobile device, I think people are now estimating next year is going to be $14 trillion. And you go, that's actually a lot. So thank you very much.
We have one over here.
It seems that the theme throughout today has been that social media or Twitter, let's use Twitter as the catch-all, is going to become more important in our ability to do our emergency response jobs, our intelligence, etc. Now, step back 20 years ago when we had an electric grid that was running on analog, and somebody came around and said, why don't we use computers? We can do it a whole lot better. And all of a sudden, everybody jumped on the bandwagon, and the electric grid became all computerized. Now we find out that was potentially not necessarily a mistake, but there was danger in that. Because now our grid is susceptible to bad people. And we're doing everything we can right now to try to solve that problem. So are smart people like you thinking about if social media becomes what everybody is depicting it they want it to become, are smart people thinking about how we ultimately are going to safeguard it? Because I could not see how any one of the government agencies, if the president was coming to San Diego and somebody said, is he safe? And they say, oh, wait a minute, we're going to use open source literature to figure out what's going on in San Diego, that the president say, or the Secret Service would say, oh, okay, we're happy with that.
Those are very wise comments in a way that, and normally, sort of the things that I get is a very skewed, sort of a real quick rendition of you absolutely profoundly can go into whole other ways of saying it. So like a social media is a off-the-chart cyber risk. It's an off-the-chart intelligence community way of doing things, sort of an off-the-chart everything. How you put those together and how you make wise decisions, certainly not saying go use social media to the exclusion of other things at all, but of going, oh, with most of us, we don't have the capability to accomplish anything like what you can do with this. And for the most part, most people are still largely unaware of what you can do with it. So not at all to say, oh, this is the place to go and this is all we're going to do. Absolutely. Keep doing a bunch of the other things, but you can go, why would you keep doing something, say as an example, why would you keep saying what we want for the county of San Diego is a 4-hour map for the fire, for where the fire is? You can go, well, that's a huge step forward from the 12-hour one that used to be there. But you can go, what if you could actually make something in the crowdsourcing? If you could bring in, say, 100,000 pieces of information in an hour, put it together and send it back out to people. And you can go, well, actually, in a whole bunch of other worlds, you can do that really easily. And a major thing that hasn't taken place is the emergency management, the law enforcement, the intelligence community, and a bunch of different groups of people are nowhere near as far into it as a whole bunch of people that you would call direct marketing. And the abilities to how would you go do that and accomplish it for the benefit, but still, maybe as a simple example, if you were starting off trying to do Twitter or Facebook or anything from square zero, trying to launch it, it takes a long time to get going, to get anybody interested. And so the normal way that the phrase is how you ignite social media to get it going is with the regular media. So in Exercise 24, we broadcast out to 110 nations, and then it actually gets, so how do you play the communication? And then the massive interaction, and a major thing that can take place, what is the major trust? Transparency, the ways that you actually can powerfully serve the community using tools like this, where lots of people expect that these tools be used. So if you go, oh, most people would, in most emergency operations centers, say, or law enforcement fusion centers, they would see that they can broadcast with the data, but there's no way they're going to take the data in because people have an expectation if you give them the data that like the 1 hour and you're going to do something, you go, there's no way you can do that. You can go, so how do you actually use these things in very powerful ways? And for a bunch of this, it's that a lot of those powerful ways can work, are already working extraordinarily well, but yet it's kind of one of those things, if you're not in it, you have no idea what's going on. And so I would completely agree that all of the normal things that you would go on, you would still continue to use. Like when Osama bin Laden was taken down. Do you think President Obama was reading that Twitter feed of, oh, the helicopters are overhead, they're doing? That was later, but you could figure out that Twitter feed from the right place was giving more information about a bunch of stuff that was important than anybody in his situation knew. And even the president, with all the things with his thing, he can't beat billions of people inputting information into something to say, like in most disasters, that's where the information is. And we commonly are set up so that, no, you can't use Twitter or Facebook in one sense, but for lots of, I've got a lab full of students in a variety of ways, and you're seeing how you can do things, and you change the way that you're doing things where you're interacting. So there's half a dozen of us who are tweeting you can go, now there's actually somebody taking the notes. There's the notes. to a whole bunch of people. But you're completely, the questions that you're asking, completely appropriate. It's just that our world has changed so much that this exabytes of data, and that will be then zettabytes of data and yottabytes of data in our lifetimes. You go, so how do you even begin to do something with it? And it isn't by reports. And it isn't by a lot of the other things, ways that we're set up to do it. But here's an opportunity, and sort of a way of saying it is, use it for what it can be, and profoundly to be aware that the bad guys are way into this. And so if they're way into it, they're, like, maybe last point. If you saw somebody downtown or someplace and they take a picture, do you pull over to the side and pull them up and you go, that's a normal thing. If you stand and there's a, like, 5th and G, you take the picture at 5th and G, the limousine with the president in it is coming by, you take the picture, you tweet it, it just went out in about 2 seconds. It went out to, and like when Prince Charles and Camilla got the sticks poked at them and the paint thrown up, their Secret Service got totally snowed. More than 10,000 people were on that account. Not a single law enforcement person was there. Not a single law enforcement person. And so you go, law enforcement gets totally blown out of the water for something totally stupid. And you go, so how many law enforcement people read Anonymous every day? Anonymous wants to say, this is what I'm going to do. But does anybody read it? And guess what they do? They do what they say they're going to do. And yet you go, this whole array of things that are out there. And then with collusion that I showed you, not only read it, but look who's tracking you. You think about who's tracking you. And that's all functionally social media for adware. So how all these pieces fit together, our world has changed. And it's sort of saying it's really worth an FBI Infragard of jumping in and saying, how do we actually begin to look at this? And the array of both opportunities, but also, like we do Mexico, I'm going to tweet in Mexico and I'm going to get my head chopped off, I'm going to get hung from a bridge, and I'm going to get mutilated for doing those 3 tweets. And you look at that and go, so how do you help the people in Mexico not get killed for something that's as simple as, and you go, so there's a whole anonymizing thing in the background that doesn't exist. And do you trust everybody in U.S. law enforcement? Obviously you don't. And you go, how do you do that? You trust everybody in everything. You obviously don't. And so you look at how all this stuff is working. It is such an enormous change of what's going on that you start to go, the opportunities are staggering. And yet in staggering, it's something that you sort of have to go. So nobody raise their hand if you don't have a Twitter account. You can go, oh, the world, and there's a whole array of all these different things. You can't possibly know how it works if you don't try it or do the different kinds of pieces. And then the array of things, and you go, holy smokes, I just got, with the array of identity theft, a whole array of different kinds of pieces, sort of jumping in and going, so how do I actually defend against that? How are the different people? I mean, it's a thing that in the Homeland Security world at San Diego State, we're really trying to say, how do we actually use this in a very positive way? But how do you actually now start to look at the high performance computing of hundreds of millions of data points a day, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, because that's actually what's going on the other side of the scale. Maybe we can talk offline if you want to continue that. Thank you very much for listening.